I know it's annoying to watch videos about politics and the environment, but I don't fucking care this time because this subject matter is too fucking important to not shed light to and to not talk about. So I'm going to give a brief video introduction about the Rice's whale. Here's a picture of one here. So the Rice's whale is a especially important animal to me personally as a whale conservationist of several years now. Well, really my entire life, but I've been actually doing something about it for about 2 years. No, in recent years. It is the only species of large whale that lives in the waters of roughly Florida or the southeastern United States, that lives in the Gulf of Mexico. Now, there's plenty of species of large whales that migrate temporarily around the Gulf of Mexico, but this is the only species of large whale that is born, it is nurtured, it eats, it sleeps, it reproduces, and it dies, all in the Gulf of Mexico. So they first appeared on the scene, evolutionarily speaking, 3 million years ago. So they've been in these waters long before we ever came close to the Americas. And their closest relative is the Bride's whale, which up until 2018, they were viewed even scientifically as the same species, and now we know that's not true. The Rice's whale is its own species from its own evolutionary branch. And it first evolved between 3 to 5 million years ago due to a result of what is suspected of the Isthmus of Panama forming geographically, which caused a lot of circulation changes in the ocean, especially since most species of whale around that time would migrate up north and then temporarily go down south to have a healthy, lively area to reproduce. But this small population that would become the Rice's whale was closed off from the Isthmus of Panama. And because the Gulf of Mexico at this time was already an enormous resource of food for them, they thrived in living full-time, living its entire life in the Gulf of Mexico. So it's been here around 10 times longer than humans have been on this planet, which, if you talk to experts, it's unanimously agreed it's between 150 and 300,000 years ago. And this is an animal that has been living around the American continent, the continental USA, for 3 million years. Now here's what it looks like. Here's some more pictures of it. These are pictures of its head. So the Rice's whale and the Bride's whale belong to the same family, which also have blue whales and humpback whales, which are collectively known as rorquals, Rorquals, which roughly, I think it means winged. They were classified because of their extremely large flippers, which were so large in comparison to other whale species that they were called Balaenoptera, which means the winged whale. And this is most self-evident in the humpback whale. But the Rice's whale belongs to the exact same family, biological family, as this, with its biggest characteristic difference, so you can spot them easier, is a much darker skin complexion compared to the other rorqual whales. It has a lot darker skin, and it grows to around 40 feet long. So it's less than half the size of a blue whale, so it's on the smaller side of the rorquals. And they dive between depths anywhere from 300 to about 1,400 feet below the surface, and they are examined to regularly go past 1,000 feet below the surface. And now for the most important fact that I have to share about this. There are no more than 50 of them left, due to the due to shipping and oil rigs and oil spills and pollution and cargo ships, ship strikes, has completely decimated, it has pulverized this population that is worth caring so much about. This is the map of where it lives. It lives in this very small region in the Gulf of Mexico. And it's being, not only that, it's being harmed in subtle ways that most people would not even think about. And the most horrifying example I know of is this that was on display. This image was on display at the Smithsonian Museum, along with a small piece of metal that, according to testimony of people who saw the metallic piece in person, was no more than about 6 centimeters long, no more than about 2 inches. So a Rice's whale a few years ago washed up at Everglades National Park in the waters of the Everglades. It was a 38-foot long male that was suspected to be of middle age. And this small 2-inch piece of metal, 2 inches, was what was ruled out as the cause of death for this individual Rice's whale. And it was a particularly painful, gruesome death. While this animal was swimming, unbeknownst to itself, there was a small piece of metallic shredding its stomach and shredding other internal organs as a result, creating a very slow, painful death. And it's stuff like that that we tend to not keep in mind when thinking about ocean conservation. Another angle to go at into how we harm this animal is the 2010 deep water oil spill. And what's subtle about this and why this is important to talk about are the more than one reason why this specific oil spill in 2010 wiped out roughly 20% of the Rice's whale population. 20% from one oil spill. And even more so, it has harmed this population in ways that you can't imagine. Yes, a lot of whales died as a direct contact with all the oil. That killed a lot of whales in and of itself. But even worse so, because of how contaminated the air was with poison and toxins, and how poisoned the water and how contaminated the water was around these whales being air breathers, they have to surface for air. They had to breathe in this toxic air, and then they had to swim through and ingest this toxic air, which causes, which weakens tissue, which in severe cases will weaken reproductive systems, and therefore it delays at best, and at worst it renders these female whales that were victims of this completely impractical of reproducing and giving birth. So not only did this one incident in 2010 kill a lot of these whales, it rendered some more of them, some of the female whales, incapable of reproduction. And it's stuff like that we don't keep in mind. And so why should we care about this? Well, and I know what you're thinking, and the answer is already no. Has the Trump administration done anything to help this animal? And I'm containing a lot of energy. I'm trying to be as civilized as humanly possible. And the answer is a complete, unequivocal, unambiguous, resounding no. In March of 2026, this year, the Trump administration unanimously rebuked and rescinded the Endangered Species Act in the Gulf of Mexico, which renders useless any of the sanctioned areas in the Gulf of Mexico for these whales to swim freely and safely, and to breathe safely, reproduce safely, continue the population safely. And this more or less has signed the death sentence of this animal. And what's very important about this, other than the trivial fact that this is America's whale, basically. I love how this administration doesn't care about the whale of its country. This species does not migrate anywhere outside of America for any period of time throughout its life. It spends all of its time in a small area in the Gulf of Mexico. The entire population does, of no more than 50 individuals. And hardly anyone knows this animal exists in the United States. Never mind that it's on the brink of extinction. It's not endangered. It's not critically endangered. It is almost extinct. And it will go extinct unless we do something about it, which is why I feel it's paramount that I release this video and spread the word, spread the gospel on this, spread the cetacean gospel. And what people don't realize about whales, other than their extreme beauty and awe-inspiring nature of them that has never gotten old my entire life, the quality of a whale's diet has a direct impact on the quality of the air we breathe. Human beings and whales have a very subtle symbiotic relationship. When we keep the ocean healthy, the whale's diet, whales have a lot more to eat, and the whales become healthier. And when whales expel waste, that waste enriches phytoplankton. And when phytoplankton are richly nourished, photosynthesis happens at a scale that many scientists agree is on a scale larger than entire ecosystems and forests, or even anything that happens on land. And that's one of the most important things I can share with an audience in the 21st century, is that the only way we will survive and thrive for the next 1,000 years is if the large whales do as well. And this is the only species that dwells in America's waters, and it is on its existential deathbed. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because it does. The species is on its deathbed. If we go in the same direction we're going in, without anyone, making videos about it, without anyone running nonprofits about it, without anyone making art about it, without anyone talking about it, without anyone thinking about it, it will go extinct within the next 20, 30, 50 years. If we continue this direction, it's not a question of, does this animal have a chance at going extinct? Is this animal at risk? Is this species in harm's way? The only question is, when will this animal go extinct? It's not a question of if, it's not a question of might. When will this animal go extinct? And I feel it is of infinite importance that I spread awareness on this, and I hope I've inspired you to care about the Rice's whale a little bit. And luckily there's many resources, and there's so many wonderful, good-hearted, intelligent people that are dedicating a lot of their time and energy to this animal with virtually nothing in return. Some places I recommend you go to, with my birthday coming up in a week, it would mean a lot to me if you could donate to the Paul Watson Foundation's Gulf Guardian campaign. It's the most trustworthy and the biggest campaign of saving this species so far, and it's been the most effective. And we need this more than ever, more than you will ever imagine, now that this animal has no federal protection on it, because it happens to live in the Gulf of Mexico, where there is money to be made. So this animal does not have any government support of prevention of its extinction, so it's entirely up to us. It's up to the artists. It's up to the activists. It's entirely up to a democratic consent. And to get a nice emotional grip on this animal, I highly recommend you check out Corey Diane's piece, who's a wonderful, very thoughtful a composer from New Orleans, Louisiana. and he made this experimental classical piece called Revere for the Baleen of the Gulf with Many Names and No Names. I don't think I got that 100%, but it's called something like that, which features recordings of the Rice's whale, and it kind of takes the eeriness and the haunting connotation of this animal's impending doom to the max. And if you want to know more about the story behind that piece, which is a great place to go to understand music, to understand life, there's a wonderful interview with him on Antimatter magazine that I highly recommend you check out. And the last note I have to end on with this, if this animal goes extinct, this will be the first time in human history that human beings have directly contributed to the extinction of a whale, to the extinction of a large whale. The only thing that has come remotely close to this in history was when the Steller sea cow was wiped out. And that, of course, happened directly and indirectly, too, when we started hunting otters, which fed on kelp, which damaged the Steller sea cow's diet. So, this will be that's just also paramount to keep in mind. This will be the first time that human beings caused an entire species of large whale to go extinct. And if this happens, luckily we're still at the phase of this being an if question. If this happens, especially within my lifetime, and I knew I never did something about it, like make a video like this, like never show people analog media of how wonderful this animal is, or tell people about it, I'd be fucking disgusted with myself and disgusted with my fellow humans. I'd be disgusted with my entire species, to be honest with you. I'd be disgusted with my country, which I already am. I'd be disgusted with my government, which I already am. I don't know what I'm gonna mentally do with myself comes the day that this animal goes extinct in one of the most preventable ways imaginable. When it was clear, evidently from the start, that this animal was not really cared for to begin with. And that's haunting. And so I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you found this educational, engaging. I hope this has made you care about whales in general, or care about just the Rice's whale, which is enough for me. Even if you didn't care about this, or you don't care about whales, I hope you've reconsidered at the very least. And I just have one closing question to top this off. Where were you when humanity allowed an entire species of whale to go extinct for the first time?